Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. A U.S. jobs market that could be on shaky ground. 92,000 job losses in February. Mary Daly, head of the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank.
I think it's really important to step back. No 1 month of data is a decisional month of data.
On the jobs picture, inflation, the devil is in the data details.
I think it just tells us that, the hopes that the labor market was studying, maybe that was too much.
Betting on the news? The popularity of prediction markets on current events has exploded. Can regulation keep up? The former congressman now running a coalition of prediction markets, Sean Maloney, joins us.
What we want is good rules, good regulation, transparency.
Plus, the latest on the engagement in Iran and the country's stability.
I wouldn't be raising my hand. Let me run this place.
And the war for AI warfare. Anthropic versus OpenAI versus the Pentagon. The politics.
I can't help you.
Okay.
You gotta go
I can't help you either.
It is Friday, March 6th, 2026. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin. This chair doesn't go down.
The chair won't. They can't tell. We'll leave it like that. Unless they took a wide shot, they can't tell. But your chair's, yes, ma'am.
Andrew, we're like it.
Yeah, she does.
Boys.
What can I get you some coffee?
The chair's very high and it's stuck.
Good. Can I get you a croissant or something?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Snap to it.
Attacks across the Middle East on the 7th day now of the Iran war. Here's the latest. Iran's Revolutionary Guard saying they're targeting Tel Aviv with missiles. Israel struck Hezbollah-controlled southern Beirut suburbs in Lebanon after ordering residents to leave. The commander of CENTCOM saying ballistic missile attacks by Iran have fallen by 90% since the first day of the war. In an interview, Iran's foreign ministry said his country isn't seeking a ceasefire from the U.S. and Israel and doesn't see any reason why it should negotiate. Meanwhile, the House rejecting a resolution designed to curb President Trump's powers in that war. And President Trump telling several media outlets that he wants the U.S. to be involved in helping to choose the next leader of Iran. This gets very much to the question we had with Michael Froman yesterday about really, if Israel wants regime change, and now the president's out there saying he wants regime change, which he said before, but just whether they would ultimately split on that and what it means if, in fact, we are choosing that person. Do you have to have boots on the ground to get to that point?
The House did pass a resolution saying that it's the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, and it was overwhelmingly passed it. But there are still 52 Democrats, the usual suspects. Ro Khanna voted against it, and I think Fetterman then, who has been very outspoken about, in recent days, said 30,000 of their own people dead in the last couple of months.
Right.
Pretty big sponsor of terrorism. What was the other thing? I'll read this, and then maybe I'll come up with it. On the energy front, President Trump teasing further action to reduce the price of oil, which has jumped as tankers have stopped moving through the Strait of Hormuz. A senior White House official told Reuters that the Treasury Department was considering using the oil futures market to combat rising prices, but Bloomberg later reported that move wasn't on the table right now. Meantime, Energy Secretary Chris Wright said that the current jump in U.S. gasoline prices will be brief. They're up 34 cents a gallon in the past week. President Trump told Reuters if prices at the pump rise, they rise. But he predicted that they would drop rapidly when the conflict with Iran is over. I know what I was thinking. I was thinking that the Iranian gentleman is starting to remind me of Baghdad Bob. Nothing to see here. Things are awesome.
No need to negotiate.
Yeah. While, attacks on Israel down 90%. The most staggering thing was a visual I saw yesterday showing which countries have gotten the most attacks, both drones and missiles. UAE, far and away. Like by a factor of 10, more than Israel. Israel's way down here. And there's a lot of Americans, I guess, in Dubai, and it's a very Western place. So there's
37,000 flights that have been canceled into and around the Middle East area. There are a lot of tourists who are still trying to get out. Some of them have gone across the border into Oman and tried to get private charters to get out. Right. But this is it's It's made its name on being a Western enclave, a westernized enclave.
What I don't understand is if you really wanted, death to Israel, death to the United States, if you had aimed, they're aiming these things, right?
Yeah.
Someone has decided, they sit around thinking, who are we going to aim these things at? And someone decided, the UAE, what if they had concentrated all of those on Israel with the Iron Dome?
The Iron Dome would impact.
But it's being degraded, the Iron Dome, just like their issues are being degraded.
But I hate, you don't want to say Dubai is a great target. Dubai is a great target
because they do intercept.
They don't have all the defenses.
But they've intercepted 85%.
But they also have one of the most popular airports in the world, meaning so many flights go through Dubai.
So the West
all goes through Dubai.
Iran figures that
Yes.
the UAE will pressure the United States to stop. I guess that's the calculus.
But
you really do have to go back and figure out what are these, trying to figure out a method in the madness. And can you ever really figure Iran out with the history of the last 47 years?
Look, even when you knew who was running the country,
right.
It was hard to fathom and hard to figure out. At this point, there's mass confusion on top of all of it.
Right. Well, I don't know. I would not want to be I wouldn't be raising my hand. Let me run this place at this point.
No. Reports say the Trump administration is planning to meet with top defense industry executives at the White House today. On the agenda, U.S. weapons. The Wall Street Journal says that lawmakers are expecting a funding request from the Pentagon to rebuild stockpiles that have been drawn down over the last week of fighting. But Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is pushing back as recently as yesterday on the idea that the U.S. ammunition is not at its full capacity. We've talked about that. There are questions. It's been stretched thin, not only by what we've been doing in the Middle East, but by years of helping support Ukraine as well, and the incursion from Russia.
Meantime, we had talked about those comments that Dario Amodei had made from Anthropic yesterday in that leaked memo. Well, now he's apologizing for what he's calling the tone of that memo, criticizing the Trump administration. But he says that his company has no choice but to challenge its designation as a supply chain risk by the Defense Department. In a statement on Anthropic's website, Amodei made it clear that the company thinks that the vast majority of its customers won't be affected by the supply chain risk label. He said the language from the Defense Department, quote, plainly applies only to the use of Claude by customers as a direct part of contracts with the Department of War, not all use of Claude by customers who have such contracts, which was a big worry for the company in terms of just how expansive other companies might consider whether they can or cannot use Anthropic. Meanwhile, Microsoft saying it's going to keep Anthropic's AI technology embedded in its products for its clients, and that excludes, though, the Pentagon. So this continuing to play out. It seems at this point that these ongoing talks are no longer ongoing. If you really read through what he's saying, it sounds like there is now a genuine impasse that maybe up until a couple of days ago, and I think that the memo, the internally leaked memo, obviously didn't help. He said we didn't leak it, and it was clearly not in our interest
it was like,
to leak it.
Yeah.
To me, it was I have
true.
TDS. I have TDS. And even Sam Altman kind of bristled at what Amodei was saying about him and bending the knee, and said that I just don't think you should base company decisions on not liking the person that's the president of the United States. I don't think you should, base your company's decision on.
Probably put it in context, though.
But he also, what else did he say? He also said that the government, no one company or even collection of companies is more powerful than the government, which sounds like you can't fight City Hall.
Right, that's really all true. But probably put it in context of a CEO, a founder of a company who's very frustrated at the idea that his company could be taken down by refusing to go along with these things. Probably just thinking of it in that context of things, you can understand where he'd get heated.
Well, it was a mistake on a lot of levels, though. It's self-defeating. Maybe you didn't know the memo would get leaked, but it's kind of self-defeating when you're, just picking a fight like that and being so overt, because we know that what Trump is capable, and we know. Remember when Biden didn't invite Elon to the EV summit because he didn't have unions, or when the Biden administration decides none of these chip makers aren't going to get any money because they don't have DEI, ESG, childcare.
Right.
I mean, administrations are
powerful.
And they use that power to
Yeah, I would just say that Biden didn't end the government's contracts
he did
with
plenty of
SpaceX.
things.
No.
Maybe not with SpaceX.
But if you really go back and think about, or by the way, if you think about all of the subsidies that were given to Tesla during that period, there's a very big distinction about. You said that Trump is going to Trump.
I think there's plenty of instances of administrations pressuring companies using what they're able to do, and this is no different. And you should apply it equally, or neither, or no. But once again, nobody should be able to do it.
The idea that it's not being applied equally is the crazy part, though. It's not being applied equally.
I don't think there's ever been an American company that's been designated a supply chain risk.
Right. The Biden administration never did this. No other administration has ever done this.
But then you're connecting it not to genuine concerns that they might have about not wanting those guardrails to making it political, which I don't know why.
I'll tell you why. Because the Treasury Secretary came on this program, and the Treasury Department has nothing to do with the Pentagon. And he said, "Why should we be in business with these people?" That is. We ask
him opinions on all kinds of things.
Sure, so. but he literally said they were going to rip it out of the Treasury Department. The point is that is political. That is the mask is off.
Stop
it is
the presses.
Patently political as it could possibly be.
Don't be naive about past administrations.
I don't understand.
No worse this time than
it's ever been. And that's the distinction that I think that you and I will disagree on. This is a different situation.
It's always different for you, and it's never different for me.
I don't even understand that when you can look factually and empirically at the fact that...
Oh, there you go, the factual empirical. Your facts and empiricals are different than mine. You know what? I'm not going to be...
Becky just made the point it was a supply... No other company in America has been described as a supply chain risk.
I am not going to be able to calm you down on this, and I can't. I'm exhausted.
Okay.
So it's just... You're going to have to... A lot of times when Becky doesn't get involved, I think you just are exhausted. She may feel one way or the other, but
it's not about feelings. It's about facts.
No, it is for me. It's tiresome. I can't
I'm
do it.
sorry that you're so tired. It's 6 o'clock in the morning.
It's Friday.
I don't understand.
It's Friday. I can't help you.
Okay.
You got to go elsewhere.
I can't help you either.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
You guys have both made your points.
Coming up, gauging market risk from the Iran.
When are we going to talk about Kristi Noem?
Kristi, 3 big reasons why that happened.
Cheese will be next.
Coming up on Squawk Pod, a potentially concerning monthly jobs report. What does it mean for the health of the economy? Mary Daly, San Francisco Fed president, is our special guest.
The piece I'm worried about is the labor market's maybe a little weaker than we have seen so far.
Welcome back to Squawk Pod. Markets on edge this Friday after an unexpected decline in U.S. jobs data. The monthly employment report from the Labor Department showed about 92,000 job losses for the month of February. Expectations were for 52,000 on the plus side, but this February number is the third time in the past 5 months that payrolls have declined. The national unemployment rate ticked slightly higher to 4.4%. Softness in the labor market could spread across the economy, and the jobs number is one of the key data points for the Federal Reserve to consider when setting monetary policy. We were joined today by San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly. She was on set with Joe, Becky, Andrew, and our own Steve Liesman.
Mary Daly, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
At an incredible time in terms of what's going on. Let's focus right now on the data we just got. Down 92,000. The market says you're all of a sudden ready to cut again. Is that how you read this number?
I think it's really important to step back. No 1 month of data is a decisional month of data. I think it just tells us that the hopes that the labor market was studying maybe that was too much, and we really have to keep our eye on the labor market. But we also have inflation printing above target and oil prices rising. How long they last, we don't know. But both of our goals are risks now, and we have to keep our eye on both.
So what's the way to think about this? A blockbuster number in January, and now a blockbuster negative number in February. Average the two, move on?
Average the two and keep watching, because there was always going to be, first we had a strike, we had snow, we had population changes, benchmarking.
Well, just to be clear, you didn't have snow in San Francisco.
No, we did. We had
very jealous of the weather.
We had a tiny little bit of snow on Mount Diablo, and everybody celebrated, and then we went back to wearing shorts. So that's how it works. But seriously, the job numbers were they're not a clear read of what's happening, but they're also not a wrong read. If you look at the sentiment surveys of workers, if you look at firms, they don't say they're hiring. And so the job market is in this low hiring, low firing state, which makes it vulnerable to any changes, including just the ones that come on regular basis.
Do you feel in general as if the monetary policy should respond to that low fire, low hire situation in the job market by helping it by being less restrictive?
It's a very different universe than when we have inflation below our target. If this was 2019, if you recall, we did a couple of cuts because we thought there were headwinds, and we cut the rate in order to make sure the labor market is supported, doesn't fall below. But right now we have inflation printing above target. It's been printing above target for some time. So it's really a balance of risks calculation. And I'd hope the 75 basis points we did last year would put a floor underneath the labor market, but this jobs market report has got my attention, and I've long been worried about it.
It was printing above inflation before $85 oil, too.
Right, and I think the thing with the oil is how long will that last, right? Consumers feel it immediately at the gas pump.
You don't use transitory anymore for a word, do you?
I don't think it was ever a good word, and it's certainly not one I'll reintroduce. Why do you bring that up?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Here you are, joining us, which we really appreciate, and I have to say that. Rick made a big point about the participation rate, and you made a point off camera, and I just want to do it on camera. So when people feel crappy about the job market, they may leave the participation rate goes down.
Absolutely. They get discouraged about their prospects, and so they just don't search. And so whether you find those workers in the unemployment rate because they're getting, they're searching actively, or they're just sitting on the sidelines waiting until things improve, those are both signals that the labor market's a little weaker.
So it's even worse then. You can't say, so it's down 90 and a 62.
I don't think you can look through this report, but I also don't think you should make more of it than 1 month of data. I like Steve's place of let's average, and we're about at zero. If you think the benchmark, the level we're supposed to achieve is 30,000, we're below 30,000, but again, it's only a couple months of data.
Go ahead.
Do you not like income gain, like it's 0.4? I told Steve, wouldn't it be great if we had 4% instead of 3.6 in terms of wage increases? Do you worry about it too, because it's inflationary?
So I want to make sure that that wages are inflation plus productivity growth. So the piece that's really important and we haven't talked about is productivity growth is higher. Mm-hmm. So if I'm a firm, I'm still making value because my worker is giving me more benefits for every hour that he or she shows up. So I don't think this wage growth that we're seeing is outsized. But so I don't think it's a sign of frothiness in the labor market or too much strength. Right now, I think the piece I'm worried about is the labor market's maybe a little weaker than we have seen so far, and so I've got to keep. But I've been worried about that since last summer.
Well, that's what I want to focus in on. You're very measured. I appreciate that because I think that's probably realistically looking at what we're facing on these. But if you had to put your finger on one of the mandates or the other, which one would you say is a higher concern level for you right now?
I think at this point, we have two-sided risks. I'm not being just balanced here as much as it's an accuracy, right? The oil price shock, depending on how long it lasts, is a real thing. Consumers will feel that. That can be injurious to or challenging for firms because they got to find workarounds, but it also can cause consumers to pull back on other spending. And if they pull back on other spending, consumers' spending has been a strength of the economy. Right. So I just want to monitor both, and I think it's important that we keep our eye on both. The labor market, of course, gives me concern, but again, strikes, snow, and some population benchmarkings that just make it a harder report to interpret.
Tell me, one of the things that's been out there is, well, obviously you have the situation of a war and you have AI going on at the same time. Let's just talk briefly about how the lessons that we took from the 70s when it comes to oil price hikes. Is the idea that you just be very careful? You may not hike in the face of it, but it'd be something that would stay your hand until it worked through the system in terms of cutting, wouldn't it?
So I think that's the point that everyone's talking about. It really depends on how long the elevated oil prices continue. If the conflict or the war settles quickly and the oil disruption that people are worrying about doesn't transpire and doesn't live for a long time, well, then we just see those things come back and we'd be back to a normal place. You don't want to act aggressively when you don't actually know that part. I think the important thing is that it's really hard to hike right now in a world where the labor market isn't we don't have any evidence that it's quite steady. So I think we just need more time, and it's why we're going to have to decide as we have an upcoming meeting.
Where do you think, Kevin Warsh is going to have this job soon, running this whole operation?
Well, we'll see.
Likely.
Whether it's soon or not.
Have they nominated him while I was away?
You missed that.
It actually
Formally nominated.
Formally nominated.
And part of his argument
fishing.
is that we're going to have extraordinary amount of productivity as it relates to AI and things like that, and that is not going to have an inflationary effect. It's actually going to be potentially deflationary. Do you believe that? Do you buy into that argument?
So, for the last, I'd say since 2022, when ChatGPT was first announced, we've been focused on how can AI transform the economy? And I was an early, my first job was in '96 with the Fed, and Chair Greenspan at the time, he's 100 today, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Great,
he turned 100
birthday.
today, so
Happy
happy birthday.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Alan. But but seriously, we were out in the field, touring factories, asking CEOs, what are you doing with computers and the internet? And you could see the famous phrase transpire. We can see productivity growth everywhere except in the data. So I'm a little more optimistic that this productivity growth we're seeing will go beyond just simple cost cutting and rebalancing, and will be driven by not all kinds of technology, but AI gives us benefits. But what we learned in the 90s is you can't just reflexively say it's coming. You've got to go dig for the information, see if it happens, and then make the policy decisions. And we're in a different world. We have an oil price shock. We have a labor market that looks vulnerable, and we have productivity growth.
So therefore, when you think
positive.
about lowering interest rates, how does that play into your thinking?
Well, there's another alternative that is also a policy decision, which is to hold them steady while we collect the information. And I think for now it's about, do we I'm certainly not in a position to think we should be hiking interest rates, but I think there's a real issue about whether we should immediately, urgently act on the labor market, or whether we should wait to think through the data.
Mary, we didn't talk a lot about inflation. What's your expectation in terms of getting down to 2%? Are your contacts telling you that the tariff price pass-alongs are done?
They are more or less saying that the tariff is just coming through and will end at the end of the year, the sort of the middle half of next year. But they do expect that we'll have some run up in inflation for the next couple of months while all the tariffs fully go through, but then come back down. So that's less of a pressure. I think their pressure now is now what do they do with oil? We just had our meetings for our boards and councils last week, and certainly oil's on their mind. But much like I've said, they're like, don't get over your skis, don't go too fast, and then it goes away. So we just have to be studying the boat. That was their language. I like that language. Studying the boat while we collect more information.
Speaking of Greenspan, they said, I'll be quick, they wanted someone that could let the economy run hot like Greenspan, because maybe it won't be inflationary and it's going to run hot. Do you accept any of those things? Does the economy run hot? Can it run hot without worrying about inflation?
I have not seen an example that the economy is running hot. Right now, what we have is extremely solid growth and a labor market with low hiring, low firing. That doesn't feel hot to workers. And with inflation printing above target, I don't think it really feels comforting to consumers.
This was a great interview on this side of the coast. I think you talk a little faster, a little more assertively, perhaps. You're more laid back.
I'm laid back in San Francisco.
No. The Dead shows were different on both ends.
You have me up in the middle of the night. So
they would come here and they would rock harder. And then,
Nice.
Mary, thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Coming up on Squawk Pod, the latest on President Trump's firing of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. And lawmakers moving to regulate prediction markets. We are joined by former Congressman and CEO of the Prediction Markets Coalition, Sean Maloney, right after this.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having a derivative-based model that has good federal regulation, because we understand those markets and they work.
And we're back. This is Squawk Pod.
Stand Andrew by in 3, 2, 1. Up and Andrew. Cue. Is Mike.
You're watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin along with Joe Kernan and Becky Quick. A lot going on this Friday morning.
And President Trump is replacing Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem with Oklahoma Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin. On his social media account, the president said Noem had served the country well and would be moving to a new security initiative. But MS Now reports that President Trump fired Noem largely because of her claim to a Senate panel earlier this week that the president had personally approved a more than $200 million ad campaign about DHS immigration enforcement. The campaign prominently featured Noem, who at one point was shown on horseback with Mount Rushmore in the background. We talked about this, I think, a little bit already. We have not talked about Markwayne Mullin. I think
that on the broadcast.
Yeah, he was just on when I was down in Washington. Am I allowed to? I like him personally. I don't know if I like everything, but I like him a lot personally, and I just think it's cool that he was a undefeated MMA fighter. Never lost as a mixed martial arts fighter. And we remember. See, I'm not a fighter. You know that. Why would I? I'd probably
not
lose.
Not a physical fighter.
No, I'm not. Yeah,
verbal
no,
jouster.
I'm not. No, I'm not a pussy cat. I'm not a physical. When he was in that argument with Sean Fain on the floor, where he was going to really come over his desk and he started taking off his ring. Because you don't want to, I'd like 5 rings on each hand. They're called brass knuckles, but he was at least not going to. But why to not leave?
Fight fair.
To not leave a mark.
Yeah.
I guess. But
who's going to take his role?
That's a good question.
As a senator of Oklahoma,
I saw the governor replaces the.
Yeah, and I saw yesterday on a different network that might be more amenable to that side of things. They said Oklahoma, and you lived in Broken Arrow, is filled with conservative people that can step into that role. And that in some elections, they were disappointed at like Lankford from Oklahoma, who was negotiating with Democrats about that.
Lankford, a Republican.
Amnesty. Yeah, a Republican who, in their view, was not a great, out of all the talent in Oklahoma for that side. It's, what is it, red by plus 24 or something like that? On the
what do you make of the president keeping Kristi Noem inside the tent? Well, so it's interesting. I think I was looking at this last night. It's nobody that was on the cabinet or anyone in his team that's ever been fired this time is being pushed out completely. And I think part of that is, remember last time, people would get pushed out, and then there'd be books, and there'd be articles, and this. But when you're sort of still sort of part of the thing,
I think that might be Susie Wiles. I would anticipate too, just trying to give this, united front that they put on with these things. Kristi Noem was the first one to be removed.
There's a different spin.
Position.
You could say that Waltz was also pushed out and has done a great job where he is now, and also that I don't know if you've noticed. We've followed this gentleman, President Trump, for a while. Yep. Not big on saying that was wrong of me to pick someone, and so
if in
this
fact
sort of says she's and the border's closed. And in her defense, and I don't want to pile on, but in her defense, if you just look at what she was supposed to do, I mean, things obviously in Minnesota.
The way it was done, and I actually think
the way the border was
Mullen
closed
is unlikely to actually even continue. I mean, I think one of the things he said was, I'm trying to learn from some of the things that didn't go right, which I thought was, by the way, the right kind of language to his credit.
And they all say, Tom Homan had to be called in to clean things up in Minnesota. And so I'm not saying that there weren't mistakes there. I'm saying that the border, I don't know whether that was done wrong, but maybe the...
Well, then there's advertising thing, and then there's potentially perjury thing. And Tom, there's a real situation.
Whether he did or did, but Tom Homan had said again and again, the worst go first, and that wasn't necessarily the case. The criminals are the ones that we're going to look. We're not going to do just overall raids. But I don't know what this new SHIELD thing is. It has something to do with drugs coming from other countries.
Latin America, I think.
Pile on, but I did not like those. I didn't like the ads, and I don't like that she shot that dog. Right there, disqualifying for me. You shoot a dog, there's no bad dogs. There's only bad owners. Lawmakers are introducing a bill to ban the president, vice president, and members of Congress from creating prediction market contracts after controversial bets on global events put companies like Kalshi and Polymarket under scrutiny. Joining us now is former Congressman Sean Maloney. He is the CEO of the Coalition for Prediction Markets, and
I love this guy.
As we've all, you do?
I love this
That's
guy.
Nice.
See? We should stop right here.
We should. You guys want to leave or something? CNBC and Kalshi have a not that there's anything wrong with that. They have a commercial relationship that includes a CNBC minority investment. It's good to see you.
Good to be here.
Your major point, I think, is a lot of these things that raise an eyebrow are offshore markets, that there's already some regulation for Polymarket.
Thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
Because I listened to Kristi sit on this set and say that an onshore responsible regulated company brought you the Maduro trade, and that's BS. That is an offshore player, that is not subject to U.S. regulation. And the reason we don't have those kind of abuses on the guys doing it the right way here is because you know who it was. Because we ban insider trading already, and we've got know your customer rules. And so there's an important conversation going on, and these are serious issues, and the coalition exists to be part of that conversation.
You also are of the opinion that it's not like a casino. It kind of looks like betting, but you're saying it's actually a derivative and that it can be used to hedge different things. You actually must have killed you, but you point out that Trump probably had a pretty good idea he was going to win from the prediction markets where on the polls that looked like he.
Well, as a political nerd, I will tell you, it is unusual that Zoran Mamdani and Donald Trump are both bragging about their Kalshi odds, right? And everybody I know running for office sends me their Kalshi odds now, not a poll. So, and you were quoting Kalshi data on this program a few minutes ago, right? Why? You guys use that data because it's very cool forecasting technology, and we know the markets can derive interesting information. But I tell you what, I do think there are serious issues that we need to contend with, and we applaud lawmakers for getting in the conversation.
When you say serious issues, what are the issues that you think need to be contended with?
I think it's really good that the CFTC has started the process of doing a rulemaking in this space. I think there are novel aspects of these markets, even though, as you point out, markets have always been accused of being a form of gambling, and speculating has always been seen as gambling. We know, however, that speculation provides liquidity in markets. What we want is good rules, good regulation, transparency.
But let's just understand what that means. So I can see how this could work in the context of politics, meaning understanding an election. And I think there's probably great value in that, and to the degree that it's pretty hard to have inside information in advance of it, that may be something that may make sense in terms of hedging and all the other things you're talking about. The thing that I think we've all talked about at this table is it feels like in this idea that you can bet on anything at any given moment, that it changes people's fiduciary duty, the amount of inside information that can be in the system, that piece of it makes it very complicated when you can bet on what you are about to say, like next.
Yes, I think
if in fact that was a opportunity on, if somebody said, Sean's coming on and someone could put up a bet about what you're going to say, that could not be a great situation.
Yes, I don't think the world where I'm that important exists, but I appreciate the example. I think but it's a serious question you're asking, and I think this is exactly what I'm talking about, which is that you've got a chairman of CFTC who is the cop on the beat and a good regulator who has said, we're going to do a rulemaking on this. And to the extent that we need to clarify these kinds of issues in these kinds of markets, because some of those contracts are different, even though they're derivative contracts on a financial market where we've got a century of experience regulating them, right? And we understand markets and we understand manipulation. We understand it's wrong to use material non-public information. Insider trading is illegal. It's been illegal. It's going to stay illegal.
You can't co-opt people who don't play by those rules.
I'm sorry?
You can't co-opt people who aren't beholden to those rules. You can do it in the financial markets because every publicly traded company has to follow the rules. Should you be allowed to bet on things where players are never going to have to follow those rules? It's not their responsibility to do it. We used the example before, knowing what's going to happen at the Super Bowl in terms of the Super Bowl halftime show, knowing what's coming next. It's not those people's responsibilities to protect that information. Right. And so therefore it's very hard to say that there's not some edge that somebody has, and that's not a fair trading market.
Right, and these are novel questions, and you're right to ask them. And my point to you is that we've got an experienced cop on the beat who's going to do a rulemaking process. We support that.
But
we'll clarify
which
some
piece
of
of it are you advocating for?
For some of these markets.
For example, use the Bad Bunny example. Do you think that people should be able to bet on what is the first song Bad Bunny is going to play at the Super Bowl? Does that seem like a reasonable thing for you or not? Because I assume it's not just that you're asking the CFTC to create some guardrails. I imagine you have a view about what those guardrails actually look like.
Right, and I have a view on what books you should read and which ones have value and which don't. I'm going to answer your question. We don't generally get in the business of telling human beings what they can transact on and what's interesting to them.
Should they be able
any
to
more than I would say
transact on
your book
whether
on the market crash is less
Should
important
you
than
be
something
making
else.
bets where
But
whether somebody's going to die or not, whether the Ayatollah is
we
going
don't
to be
allow
taken
those
out?
transactions on U.S.-based platforms. The CFTC has clear core principles that would prevent that. So no, they should not. However, if you want to understand there are important hedging strategies around a change in government, I think that's a perfectly legitimate thing to hedge, and there are huge economic implications for that. And a responsible company doesn't allow people to transact on death, and that's the right way to go. But on your case, what I'm trying to tell you is that we have a referee to call balls and strikes on things like that, and to clarify what people's responsibilities are and what they aren't.
Right, but I assume you are talking to the referee, telling the referee what you think the rules should be. And so what I'm asking you very specifically is, what should the rule? If Taylor Swift's going to have a concert, should her song, whatever she's going to do, or if Brian Armstrong is going to do a conference call and is going to talk about something or not talk about something, should that be something that is permissible to bet on? And I'm not talking about the specifics. I'm talking about the concept of effectively betting on things that are happening happening outside of maybe the financial markets.
Well, let's take a step back. The reason that millions of Americans are excited about these products, and the reason this network uses Kalshi data, is because your viewers find it useful that when you aggregate that market information with people with skin in the game, you learn important insights. And you may care about the Grammys or not. You may care about the sales of a song or not. Some people clearly do, and they can transact on that. The question,
I think I'm asking you a different question. It's not about who's going to win the Grammys, which might be a fair thing to bet on, assuming that you think that Price Waterhouse or whoever's doing the accounting is not going to share that information prior. But whoever that musician is that's going to win, what they're going to say during their speech. And I'm asking you, are you saying that what they're going to say during their speech, for example, that kind of thing, would be something that you think should be permissible? It sounds like you do.
No, look, what I'm saying is that the market will determine what people want to trade on, and it's the job of a good regulator to say when things cross the line that offends a moral principle. And I'm asking you, are you suggesting that things like that do cross the line or they don't cross the line? I don't think there's anything wrong with people transacting on things where they have expertise or where they have economic risk they want to hedge. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a derivative-based model that has good federal regulation, because we understand those markets and they work. I think if your point is that I should be picking what's meritorious and what's not, I think it's far better system.
It's not meritorious. There's a certain kind of schema where there's a large possibility for inside information to be used to bet on, which is different than other kind of, I put in sort of two different kind of schema. That would be my word.
Well, now he's just using big words, but
even though it's only 2 syllables.
I mean, I went to a state school, man. But
you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. We all know what
schema. Yeah, I mean, all right. Look.
That's private.
I'm taking your point seriously, but what I'm telling you is that the way this works best is when companies like Kalshi can offer contracts that their users find useful. And if it's working right, they know there are guardrails and there's a cop on the beat that's enforcing those. And by the way, we have not seen the high publicized abuses that people have heard about on US-based markets that are federally regulated. We see them on offshore platforms where people are acting like cowboys, and that is exactly where you're going to drive people if you don't have good federal regulation here. So my point to you is, your concerns are valid, and some of these questions are new, and we need guidance on some of them from the cop on the beat.
Betting on individual words,
we want
that sounds like casino.
But
it doesn't sound like a derivative.
That doesn't sound. I bet on all these English words during the Super Bowl. I lost my ass. I had not a single, not a super the halftime. I bet on nothing.
I don't know what to tell you, but I would probably have the same outcome. But I think that millions of Americans find these tools useful, and this network finds
and
these tools useful.
they are in certain instances.
But some of it sounds like betting on an individual free throw, making that or something. That's a bet. Betting on someone coming out with the word. And Andrew's right. I mean, if you could, the guy can know what he's going to say, right? Couldn't he be?
Yeah, the Coinbase CEO did. He was following the odds and then said at the end, like, threw all the words in just to do it. I understand the usefulness, and I do understand it in certain cases. I do think that there need to be some serious conversations around what is legit and what is not, and what is just a flat out bet.
I really like the way you said that, and we're joking around, but we agree. And that is exactly what the coalition exists to do. And if you want to know why we are here,
but there's not much self-policing taking place. This is like we're going to throw it to the regulators and see.
Well, no, let's be fair. Let's be fair. If you're talking about the U.S.-based federally regulated guys, they spent 4 years doing it the right way, going through the front door of CFTC.
I do appreciate them doing that and making sure that they are following U.S. regulations on some of these things. But I also know the regulators take a very long time to catch up, and there's just what happened over the weekend.
But you don't see us saying
$54 million was kind of frozen because of what happened on those bets about the Ayatollah being taken out.
Right, and let's take that example because that's a good example of an American-based company responding correctly, saying no, we don't have contracts that pay out on a death, and made a lot of users upset. Refunded, lost millions of dollars to do it the right way, right, and took some heat. But that's what a responsible company does. Compare that to folks who act like nothing is wrong. And what I'm telling you is these markets exist. They're very useful. That's why you guys use the data.
Yep.
The thing we should all do is focus on having a good cop on the beat, having companies here in the U.S. so that we get the value of these things, and just like every market, police the potential abuses.
Yep.
And there's some new questions that we're all getting our head around.
I just don't think they're all derivatives. I don't think every bet that's being made on that.
On any given day, you can bet Andrew's going to say Trump is bad, and I'm going to say Biden was bad.
Well, if you
that is not true. That is not true.
Here's where
you will say Biden is bad, and I will critique something that might have happened.
Now here he comes with the alternative facts again.
Just saying.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
Biden was bad.
Okay, thank you to Sean Maloney for joining us at the table. We're all in a hurry to get through Friday. That is Squawk Pod for today and for the week. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernan, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Wasn't it great to have them all back together again? Tune into the show weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. Or get the smartest takes and analysis, the best interviews and conversations right into your ears when you follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. We'll meet you right back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.